It begins with a glow, a bedroom light turned off, curtains pulled shut. A child leans forward, his face washed in the blue shimmer of a screen. He's not wandering the streets, he's not getting into trouble, he's at home, playing a game. Parents sigh in relief. At least he's safe, they think. But what if I told you, this very moment, this child, this screen, this game could be the front line of a billion-dollar crime empire when play becomes prey? In the late 2000s, the internet wasn't just changing how we lived, it was rewriting how we played. RuneScape, World of Warcraft, MapleStory, games where you didn't just control a character, you lived inside them. Digital kingdoms, sprawling landscapes, virtual currencies. On the surface, harmless, but hidden beneath the quests and chat rooms was something darker. Every game had its own money. Gold, credits, coins. At first, these currencies were fake, just pixels on a screen. But players gave them value. Someone, somewhere, was always willing to pay real dollars for digital gold. And criminals noticed. They realized these games weren't just playgrounds. They were unregulated financial systems, laundromats in disguise. Dirty money could be poured in, turned into gold, and cashed out clean. No banks, no oversight, no questions asked. And who better to exploit than children? Kids grinding dungeons, mining ore, selling skins. Kids who never questioned why a stranger wanted them to farm for hours. Kids who thought they were helping friends, not fueling the cash flows of drug cartels. A boy in Birmingham remembered being asked to mine ore in RuneScape for weeks. He thought it was a game of patience. In reality, the ore he collected was sold, flipped, and laundered into thousands of pounds. He never saw the money. He never knew the men who made it. This innocence was weaponized. By 2010, whispers began surfacing. Law enforcement agencies hinted that online games were hiding criminal economies, but no one truly grasped the scale. Not governments, not parents, not the children who were slowly becoming silent players in a billion-dollar ring.
Picture a boy in Mexico City. His name is Miguel, 14 years old. Skinny, shy, but proud of his gaming guild in an MMO called Tibia. For the first time in his life, he feels important, needed. One evening, his guild leader asks him to hold some items, rare potions, expensive armor. Miguel agrees, thrilled at the responsibility. What he doesn't know is that these digital goods represent thousands of dollars washed clean through his account. When investigators later trace the transactions, Miguel's name is tangled in the books of a drug syndicate. He was never paid, never even told. He was just a child, holding shadows. This is how the system worked. Innocence became the mask. Kids were labor. Kids were in storage. Kids were couriers, and they had no idea. By 2012, the market for virtual goods was worth billions. Chinese gold farms churned day and night, rows of teenagers forced to grind for digital gold. On the other side of the world, Western kids logged in from their bedrooms, unknowingly feeding into the same economy. An investigator from the US Treasury later admitted these weren't games anymore. They were shadow banks, and the tellers were children. When fantasy turned into finance, kids became soldiers in an invisible war. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about loyalty. Guild leaders, online friends, older mentors, they weren't just giving orders, they were grooming, teaching children that rules were optional, that the thrill of breaking them was part of the game. Some children began to notice. They saw the real money flowing, and they wanted a taste. What started as innocence turned into excitement. Excitement turned into greed. And greed, for some, became loyalty to the very criminals who once used them as pawns.
By the mid-2010s, the system was running like a machine. Stolen credit cards bought in-game currency. In-game currency flipped into skins, loot, gold. Gold sold on shady marketplaces, turned back into cash. Billions washed clean, all hidden in plain sight. And children were at the center. A teenager in London sold Fortnite skins online. thinking it was pocket money. By the time investigators arrived at his door, he had unknowingly laundered over 200,000 pounds for a criminal network. He broke down when told the truth. He wasn't a mastermind. He wasn't even a criminal. He was a pawn. How do you punish a pawn? How do you explain to parents that the colorful game their child loves is doubling as a cartel's bank? Even Interpol admitted the difficulty. We are fighting an enemy hidden in pixels. The players are children. The battlefield is everywhere. Meanwhile, the criminals evolved. They built fake games and entire apps designed solely to launder money. Kids downloaded them for fun, not realizing their devices were mining cryptocurrencies for cartels. The truth is almost poetic in its cruelty. The very thing parents thought was keeping kids off the streets was delivering them into darker alleys than ever before. What if the crime ring wasn't the end of the story, but the beginning of something far worse? Because money was only the first chapter.
By 2020, the game had changed again. Cryptocurrencies blurred the line between play and profit. Some kids weren't just laundering money, they were being recruited into cybercrime itself. Think about it. If you can train a child through a game that deception is fun, that bending rules earns rewards, that moving money in secret is clever, haven't you built the perfect recruit for tomorrow's syndicate? One former gamer confessed years later, "I was 13 when I first traded gold for money. It felt like winning a hidden level of life. By 17, I was helping code scripts to farm faster. By 19, I was working directly for the men behind it. The game never ended. It just changed skins." This is the haunting truth. A billion-dollar crime ring didn't just use kids, it shaped them. It carved pathways in their minds. It turned play into training. Today, experts warn that the next generation of cybercriminals won't be recruited in back alleys or gangs. They'll be recruited in raids, guild chats, Discord servers in the very games that promised safety. And it leaves us with one chilling question. When you see a child laughing in front of a screen, what world are they really in? Who else is playing alongside them? And what shadows are waiting behind the glow? Because this story isn't just about games. It's about us, about how innocence can be weaponized, about how entertainment can be twisted into an empire, about how children, the very symbol of trust, became the perfect cover for crime. The billion-dollar crime ring that began inside a video game is not just history, it's a warning, and it's still happening.